Okay, folks, let's go ahead and get started. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting a few minutes here. I just got back from a long run and I can't stop sweating. So, excuse me for that, but it's a little bit more difficult to run in 105 than it is in 95, and I didn't allow enough time for that. So, um, anyway, if you see me dripping with sweat, it's because I literally just got back in the door here. So, anyway, let me say hello to some folks. Hey, Todd, Barbara, great to have you. Andy, good that you're here. Todd's here live, fantastic. I always miss folks in the comments. I apologize about that. Hey, Gordy in the house. I bet it's a lot cooler where you are in Minnesota. Sherry, good to have you. Katrina, and anybody else who comes in. No offense if I miss you. Yeah, I did live, Todd, exactly. Bobby, what's going on, my man? All right. So this is week 21. And hey, Laura, hey, Lex. It is a recap week, if you will, of putting the whole kit and caboodle together. Hey, Matt, how are you, my man? I hope you made it back from Chicago safely. Although that might have been, you might have since been back from Chicago. But this is a Cliff Notes version because I only have 30 minutes to cover what we've covered over 21 weeks. And even the 21 weeks, frankly, is a Cliff Notes version of all that you need to know to really have a baseline to build from in terms of being really effective with real estate. And by effective, I mean making as much money as you want, getting as many houses as you want, putting in whatever hours you want, being your own boss, having the kind of time available to do the things that you want to do, which is really what you're buying with the money, right? When you have, money sitting in the bank, it gives you the freedom of choice to do what you want to do without having a boss breathing down your neck or having to worry about, deadlines for other people's businesses instead of deadlines for your business. It's a totally different mentality, and I think that's what what we're driving towards when we embark upon a real estate investment journey. So, if those of you who are just joining me, the reason I'm wiping my face is because I'm still sweating. Even my dog is panting. I was getting, usually I try to run the dog early because, their paws can get burned on the hot cement, but it's still early enough here that, the cement wasn't that hot. I gave it the little 5-second test and it's warm, but not hot. So anyway, I'll quit bitching and moaning. It's not that bad. I played softball in 116-degree heat throughout basically my whole life. So it's not a big deal. The recap though. So let's begin really with the end in mind as far as what we're actually trying to accomplish here. And I'll tell you that, I'll tell you how we get there, and then I'll sort of repeat it in a way that gives you a plan of action for implementation from here on out. First of all, there's a few ways that you can make money in real estate. That's what we're trying to do. And the paradigm shift that people need to make, the mindset shift that people need to make, is that you actually make money when you get the deal. You make money buying the real estate, which sounds counterintuitive, right? You get paid when you sell the real estate. But what I'm suggesting to you is if you get a good deal, then on paper, you have money, you have equity, because you now have control over that property. There's a whole business built on just getting control of real estate and then selling that control to somebody else. That is really known as wholesaling real estate, where you get a property. The simplest way of thinking about that is getting a property at, let's say, a big discount. So now you have a contract to buy the property. Let's say it's worth $100,000 and you have it for $60,000. Well, you could find a lot of people who will buy that contract to buy it for $60,000, for $10,000, $20,000, even $30,000. Why? Because the value of the property is more than the $60,000 contract plus the $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 that buyer will give you to replace you in the contract and effectively buy it from that seller who you structured the deal with. So with that in mind, what our mode of operation should be is to go and get deals from sellers. Because if you get deals from sellers, then you have made a lot of money on paper that you just have to convert into cash. And there's a myriad of ways to do that. There is an absolute plethora of people out here who won't do the work that we'll do to get those deals with sellers, and they look to buy from people like us. Now, that's just one way of doing real estate. I'd submit to you that it's not nearly enough. Why? Because there's lots of people out here selling garbage programs about wholesaling, and what they don't tell you is that it's extremely difficult to get a property at 60 cents on the dollar. Now, you can do it for sure. We do it. Lots of people do it. You can make a lot of money doing it. However, to a great extent, they are needles in the haystack. It's a numbers game, and you need to build a whole team around you to help identify those properties. And that can definitely be done, and you can make a lot of money doing it, but you only get paid once. You only get paid once. You assign that contract and you're done. And what we do here is we still focus on where the money is, which is getting the deal, right? You know, let's say, let me just rewind for a second and go back to the money is made getting the deal. If you think about, let's say you have an option to buy stock in, and the company's now selling for $100 a share. Is it fair for you to consider that you have $50 of equity per share? It probably is fair for you to consider that, right? Banks and other commercial entities are allowed to mark their books to the market value of their assets. So it's not just the cash that they have, it's the market value of their assets. And that can work in reverse too, right? If you like in the 2008 financial crisis, if you bought a property for $300,000 and it went up in value to $400,000, at one point you had $100,000 on paper, and a few years later, after the crisis, when it was worth $150,000, you actually had a negative, net worth on that property because it was less. It was worth less than what was owed on it. Okay. But so the point I want to make is get the deal and you now have an asset. When you have the paperwork, when you have that agreement, you have an asset. Now, what we do that's different is we offer sellers every single alternative that's available to them so that we can improve our conversion ratio. We don't have to get the property at 60 cents on the dollar. They are going to do one of the things that we can service and profit from. And all we have to do is talk to them about their alternatives, let them select which alternative they want, and then the cat and mouse game is really just whether or not they want to work with us. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. Sometimes they like your personality, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they trust you, sometimes they don't. Sometimes, it's just not the best fit, right? You don't get along with everybody. So, but your conversion ratio goes through the roof because they are going to do one of the things that we can service. So I don't have to depend on getting a phenomenal price. I can also get phenomenal terms, meaning the seller can get a higher, the seller has to make one of two trade-offs. They can sell the traditional way, but now you got to deal with the professionals that are involved. Realtors, inspectors who will come in, and then the buyers who will use those inspection reports to get greater concessions, paying their closing costs, all kinds of loan committees that have to come in for the buyer to make things happen, possibly having to contribute points on the buyer's loan, waiting for that process to occur while they're making payments. They end up getting less money out of their house. They don't keep all the equity that they in the house has earned. So there's a trade-off to sell in the traditional way. It's not necessarily a bad thing to do that, not at all. But it is a trade-off. The trade-off they make with us is different. They actually get more money with us. They get a lot more money with us, which frankly is what most people want. But the trade-off on that is they have to be patient in getting it. meaning they have to take monthly payments for a period of time until we pay them off in full, either because we'll buy it where we're making an installment against the price, or we'll lease it from them with the option to buy it during the term of our lease. That will enable us to get them a lot more money, but they have to wait for it. So they're going to make one of those trade-offs, and we're going to plug them in to the right slot. So when we talk to the seller, what we really want to have happen, the deals that are most profitable for us, are deals where the seller is willing to take a monthly payment for a period of time until we pay them off in full. And the reason that those deals are so profitable for us is because there's a market of buyers that's probably 20 times larger than the market of traditional buyers who are qualified for loans immediately. But there's a huge market of buyers who don't quite meet the underwriting guidelines for a loan right now. They've got to dot this I, they've got to cross this T, they've got to be on their job for a little bit longer. They have to get through a divorce. They have to get through, a court case. There's a credit issue that has to be resolved. Something's broke that has to be fixed. But they have plenty of money and they have plenty of income, but they still don't qualify for the loan. Now, that means that doesn't mean that they don't want a house or they want to be relegated to an apartment. They still want to buy a house. And we are sometimes the only game in town who has a house for sale that we can put them in on monthly payments until they pay us off in full. And what happens is we get a big down payment from them, and we give no to low down payment to our seller. So we make a huge spread between what we have coming in from our buyer and what we are giving to our seller. That's our first payday. Our next payday is the difference in the monthly money that they give us, our buyer gives us, and we give our seller. And that can happen every month for a long time. Our next payday is that we are building up equity in the property as we pay down the debt. We possibly are getting appreciation, not always, but we possibly are getting appreciation on the property. And we're selling the property for a higher price than what we are buying the property for from the seller. So there's yet another spread, but there's even more spreads. This is what I mean. It's a perpetual income stream on just one deal. Wholesaling, you get the contract, you sell it, you got to go get another one. This way, we have multiple streams of income coming in on one property. Sometimes our buyer doesn't qualify for the loan and ends up not buying from us. And then we get to do the whole thing again, get a new down payment, get another stream of monthly payments, get an even higher price with more equity in the property. And then maybe they don't qualify, and the cycle repeats. If they do qualify, we get that big third payday, which is the difference between what's coming in and what's going out. So in a nutshell, there are a lot of different ways that we can profit on these houses. And what I'm suggesting to you is you have to get good at structuring the deal with the seller. Okay, you make money on the acquisition. You convert that paper money into cash, when you end up cashing out of the property. And you can really do that, on your own schedule. So chew on that for just a second. I'm gonna take a sip of this water and then I'll recap everything that we've covered on how to do exactly that, okay? Smooth. All right. Travis, just passing through in Ocean City for a tournament and vacation. Nice. Nice, Travis. I hope you do well in the tournament. All right. So in order to accomplish what I just discussed, which is to acquire properties, acquire contracts, acquire assets that we can then go out and sell, we don't need any money and we don't need any credit, and we can do this in any market with any seller. And the reason is we are using the skills that are in our brain in order to send paperwork over that they will okay, and then now we have an asset. Well, we didn't buy anything yet, right? When we buy, we can usually fund our purchase from the seller out of the buyer's proceeds that come into us. Okay, so we're literally buying the property from the seller with the money that we're getting from our buyer. So you don't need money to do this. You don't need credit because you don't have to go get a bank loan. The bank loan is generally coming in from our buyer if it even comes in. Or the money to purchase the house is being financed by the seller. Or we're just leasing it from them and they're giving us time to buy it. Okay, so we don't need money. We don't need credit. It's a very big shift in mentality, and it's why you can get as much real estate as you want. Now, I talked about what to do with your profits last week, and well, not what you should do with your profits, but what I do. I might be in a little bit different position in terms of age and where I'm at in my life and what I want to do in my life. So I would have a different investment strategy than others would, and the one thing that I think is universal though is you don't need to use the money that you've actually earned, the cash that you've actually earned, and put it into real estate, because we can get as much real estate as we want using our skills. And that's what these 21 weeks were about, is to give you the skills to acquire as much real estate as you want. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you, and I've said it throughout the program, that if it's going to be a much harder road to follow these 21 weeks of trainings, which I'll leave up in here for you guys for a while. It's going to be a much harder road for you to go through that and be successful in real estate than it is for folks who have come into my coaching program. If you come into my coaching program, we literally go through all of these topics. You probably can't see this right here, but we're on the phone every night. Okay? There is a give and take that can occur. There's a dialogue that can occur. This is didactic, right? I mean, yeah, we're chatting a little bit in the comments, but you guys aren't asking me questions and having me look at your deals and say dot this I, cross this T, do this, do that. It's not that kind of guidance, right? But here, where we're doing Zoom calls every night and going through each topic with tremendous granularity, tremendous specificity, so that you understand every single move to make, every single nuance, every single possibility, and you have the ability to give and take. That is what I like to call GPS level guidance in real estate. It's a navigation system when you have a coach, when you have a mentor who can actually help you every step of the way. It doesn't cost very much money to do that. You talk these deals, you average probably like 25 grand as just the first payment on each deal, and then there's usually a few $100 a month of cash flow on each deal, meaning each month you're getting a few $100 of cash flow, sometimes more than that. I've got a couple where I'm over $1,000 a month in just the cash flow, the monthly difference between what my buyer pays me and what I pay the seller. And then I'm building up equity. I have been getting appreciation. I don't know if that'll occur. I got so much appreciation on one property, I cashed a check for $700,000. Now, that wasn't really my skill. It was more the luck of the market going way up, but I put myself in that position because I got mentoring way back in the 90s. I paid $25,000 for that mentoring. And $25,000 in the 90s is a hell of a lot more money. Against, I don't know what that would be today. It would be over 100,000, right, for that kind of investment. But look, this is well south of 10 G's. You only need a few $1,000s to get started, and you can get that GPS level guidance. Because I'm not doing this for coaching revenue. I'm doing this so that I can pick and choose who I take under my wing, help them get really good at this, and then my hope is that later on we'll do joint venture deals where I don't have to scour the earth for deals. You kind of bring deals that might be a little bit too big for your britches, something you're uncomfortable with, and we end up joint venturing on them and split the proceeds. That's actually how I make money doing this. I don't really make money on the coaching because I offer it so inexpensively. But I do make money when we joint venture on things later, and so will you, because we're splitting things 50-50 at that point. And there's no requirement to JV with me, okay? It's just once you get to know me a little bit, people sometimes feel like that's a good move to make. So I'd be remiss if I didn't offer up to you that you can follow these 21 weeks, you can come into these Facebook Lives. There's a lot to learn in here. But if you don't get guidance, if you don't get somebody showing you the way, it's really hard. Like, think about learning how to ski or snowboard or even golf without ever having like a teacher there to actually help make the proper adjustments. Think about trying to learn to drive a car from videos. it's not really a smart way to go. You should get coaching. You should get mentoring. It doesn't have to be me, by the way. I'm not the only one who knows how to do this. I'd suggest that, I'm very, very devoted towards helping people get good at this. You can see some of that in the testimonials. I've found in the coaching industry that a lot of people just want to collect your money and then you don't ever hear from them again. You don't even get the real coach. You get one of their acquisitionists who isn't even, really an acquisitionist. They're like somebody they hired who learned the system, who's just coaching you on what the system says. But in this program, it is actually me. I am actually the one who will be taking you by the hand and walking you through various deals. So anyway, if you're interested in that, I can't guarantee that I'd take you into the program even if you have the money to do it, because it does have to be a fit. There's 3 things that I require. One is that I have to know that I can help you. Meaning, if I get the impression that you're a moron, and no offense to anyone on here, but there are a lot of morons, and there, with a group of thousands of people, there's a couple thousand people in this. There's definitely some morons in here. I've had to block people for doing moronic things. Okay, so if you're a moron, need not apply. I'll be able to pick up on that right away. You might think I'm a moron, right? So the thing is, I have to feel that I can help you, which means you have to have some kind of a work ethic. It's not, hey, sign up with Joel and you get rich eating hot Cheetos and watching Netflix on the couch over there. It's sign up with Joel and you listen to what I tell you need to do, and then you actually go out and do it, and you should make a lot of money. Those are the kinds of people I want to work with. So that's the first piece of it. The second piece of it, there has to be a little bit of a vibe between us, because you can tell by the way I'm talking right now. I mean, I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I'm very direct. I'm very to the point. There's a genuineness and an authenticity, but some people can't handle me being frank and saying, no, that deal sucks. Don't do that deal. That would be a bad move. Or go do that deal. What are you waiting on? Come on, I've seen creek water move faster than you. Go get that deal with that seller. I'm going to be probably a little bit hard on you, and some people can't take that. And that's because I want to get you to the other side, because I don't really care about the coaching revenue. I care about getting you good at this so that we can actually get down together and make some serious money, right? Like I've done with some of my clients who have gone through that fire and got to the other end, and we're joint venturing on deals from time to time. So that's what I'm trying to do. And that's the second thing. And then the third thing, look, I'm not going to coach you for free. I'll do this stuff for free, but if you won't put an investment into your own skill development, then why should I? Okay, I didn't have $25,000. I went out and got it because I could see the potential that real estate offered, and I got good coaching, and it led me to the other side where I'm living my best life. Is whoever sings that song. I forget who sings that song, but I like that rap. Living my best life, right? And all y'all can do that too if you just make an investment in yourself. Okay, I know a few $1,000s sounds like a lot of money, but it's chump change relative to the amount of money you can make here. It's chump change relative to like a semester of college. You can take a biology class for a semester, and yeah, that might be a chink in your armor as far as getting a college degree, but you're probably better off investing in something like this that gives you very specific in the trenches skills and guidance. By the way, my guidance is for a lifetime. There's no upselling, no upcharges. There's no, you got to give me more money. Once you're in with me, you're in with me. Because again, I'm trying to get in a position where we JV with people. So I help you for as long as you need it. Okay, you can go at your own pace. So anyway, my point was really that you can schedule like a Zoom call, and we can do a discovery call on whether or not it's a good fit or not, and then figure out what to do from there. But look, if you're not in a position to invest a few $1,000s in coaching, why even schedule the call? What, I'm just gonna get you all juiced up about what can happen, but then you're gonna do nothing. So I don't know what the point of that is. But I do hope that you will schedule a call, because I think I can convince you that this is a good road to go down if you have some basic common sense and a little bit of a work ethic, then and some staying power, because it's simple but not easy. You have to put in an effort. Then I think we should talk, because it'll be a good conversation for you to have about what this could entail for you and what it could look like financially for your future. All right. So finally, getting to the recap. Obviously, I'm going to go a little bit long because I'm rambling a little bit. At least I stopped sweating from my run. But here's what happens, okay? What we covered, now this is going to come at you kind of fast, right? Because I don't want to keep you here all day. But this is what we've covered. The first thing that you have to learn, and these are the first few weeks. So if you go back into the events tab and go through the first few weeks of this, you'll see that the first few weeks of this program are all about strategy. What is our strategy for approaching the seller? And here's a hint. It's not just, can I get your house at 60 cents on the dollar? That's the wholesaling, guys. Yeah, that looks great on paper. Anybody can make a program look great on paper if you assume that you're going to get houses at 60 cents on the dollar. Hey, $1 million house for $600,000, you just made $400,000. Well, that does happen, but they're few and far between. You have to know how to access them, and there's quite a lot to that. So we're going to cover a very robust strategy that allows you to buy any house from any seller in any market without using any of your own money or any of your own credit. Now, there's certain deal structures that populate that strategy, and we covered that. It can be things like getting a house at 60 cents on the dollar. It can be getting a house at 100 cents on the dollar, right? But you're getting beneficial terms, meaning you're paying it in monthly payments over time. The seller is taking installments against that payment. It could be that the seller doesn't want to transfer the property until they've been paid off in full, so we'll lease the property from them. But during the term of the lease, we have the option to buy the property from them. And then we go and sublease it with an option to buy where we're getting a down payment from our seller. That's payday number one. We have monthly cash flow coming in, and we have a spread between what we're selling it for and what we're buying it for. Then there's deals where we just go ahead and get a contract for whatever kind of terms the seller is willing to do, and we may sell that contract. Or we may just give ourselves a long enough period of time to close so that we can go out and market for our buyer, and when our buyer comes in, we either renegotiate the deal with the seller so that it makes sense, or we close funding our purchase from the seller with our buyer's proceeds. We may have different exit strategies in terms of deal structure. We may sell it with owner financing. We may sell it on a lease with an option to buy. We may Airbnb the property out. There's all kinds of structures that you have to learn, and we went through a lot of that. Now, once you've learned this strategy, right, and you've learned the deal structures, that's really important because that's the foundation for everything. That's the actual deal types that we're going to be putting in place. Once you have that in your head, it's not enough. Okay, a lot of you probably already have that in your head. You may have gone to some real estate seminars. You may have read about some of these techniques. Taking over payments from a seller, for example, taking property subject to. People know the nomenclature, the terminology, and maybe understand at a basic level the structure, but they have no idea how to get the deals done. Okay, so in order to get what's in your brain into the seller's brain so that they can actually sell you the property, you have to be good at what the approach is with the seller. So there's a certain script that you need to follow that works really well in order to present to the seller what their options are. And I call that the approach. So how do we approach the seller? So we spent some time on that. We also spent some time on why it makes sense to get a Realtor license. If you're going to be doing this for a long time, it's not going to hurt you to get a license. It can help you in a lot of ways, and I covered that. We talked about, in addition to your approach, getting to a point where you have somebody making the approach for you, a virtual assistant or an executive assistant who's going through all the different people who are selling houses and then asking specific questions through a script, and then you're getting a sheet of paper that indicates whether or not this is somebody who you should talk to because there's a potential deal there. So we talk about how to use virtual assistants. Now, And we also talked about your posture, like how you roll, how you want to come across, not begging, not pleading, not arguing with the seller. There's a certain posture that you need to have. Okay, so that emphasizes not just having the strategy, but having the approach with the seller down so that you could communicate the strategy in a way that's compelling enough to the seller that they'll actually do the deal with you. Now, when you've completed that approach with the seller, there's only three things that can happen. The seller's going to say, yes, I'm in. No, I don't want to do it that way, in which case we take them down another strategic road where we can still make money on the deal. Or they say, maybe I will take monthly payments for a period of time until you pay me off in full. But I have some questions. The questions come at us, and we need to be able to answer those questions from a place of authenticity and from a place of competency, where they trust us and they understand that we know what we're doing. We have a certain level of expertise. These are questions like, well, I'd like to get more money out of this house. I don't really want to pay realtor commissions and all those costs. But if I don't get my money out of this house right now, then how am I going to get another house? Questions like, well, what if you tear up the property? Questions like, well, won't the bank call the loan due if I sell you the house? We went through 30 different objections. So you should go through those objection handling sessions and understand how to answer the questions. It's all in there for you guys, right? Again, trying to learn from video versus having a dialogue. We do it nightly. For folks in my coaching program, your understanding is going to happen much more quickly. When it happens through a dialogue. But you do need to get good at the dialogue with the seller, meaning handling their objections. So at that point, you've got a strategy, all the different deal types, all the different alternatives that the seller has, and what the pluses and minuses are. You're able to approach that seller with a different way of selling their property that allows them to get more money and see where they land, yes, no, or maybe. Depending on that answer, we will go through the different questions that they have. We'll go through the logistics of how we get the deal done, answer their questions, make them comfortable that the deal is going to get done. And then at that point, depending on what they're willing to do, now we're going to engage in an agreement. Well, how do you engage in an agreement? Well, first there's the oral agreement, and then we need to put it in writing. So we went through all the different types of paperwork that memorialize the different deal structures that we're talking about with the sellers. You need to learn how to do that. And I shared with you the main ways that we do that also in these 21 weeks. And you can go back and look at the paperwork that we described. From there, you've now, like I said, once you have the paperwork back, you now have an asset. So technically you've made money on paper, but now you got to know how to sell the property. Okay? How to sell the property is actually the easiest part of this business, because if you get a good deal, there's all kinds of people coming your way to get that good deal. So when you have a good deal, they're actually pretty easy to sell. And I went through a three-pronged attack with you on how to sell the property, how we use the MLS, even if we're not a realtor, the multiple listing service, I went through how my clients, and I'll make you an offer here today actually, because I'm in a good mood, how the folks that are in my coaching program are able to use my team, my dispositions team, to actually sell any property that they have, and they don't pay anything for it unless they choose the buyer that we bring to the table. So if my guy, my dispositions manager, brings somebody that you like with $50,000 down on a $400,000 property, and you only could get $20,000 in your own marketing, you might want to select my guy. Well, if you do that, then you pay him. But you don't pay for any of the marketing that we did, any of the expense, time, energy, money, resources we put into getting the buyer, using our list, those kinds of things. You don't pay for that unless you select one of our buyers. And there's no requirement to do it. But if you select one of our buyers and you've got paid, then you do pay. And that's 25% of the down. So on a $50,000 deal, that would be what, $12,500. So you'd get $37,500 down on that deal. And I don't keep any of that money. I let my dispositions manager keep that. So he'd get what, $12,500. So that's the second prong, and then the third prong is this thing called hyperdrive, which I'm going to go through. But I might as well just make this offer out to you guys. So if you listen this long, because I'm going late here today, this is the 21st week, right? So I'll make a deal with any of you on here who have properties that you're trying to sell, and this goes beyond even the people that are in my coaching program. I'll let you utilize my dispositions team. My dispositions manager will run all the marketing, everything for you to get the property sold. You don't pay a dime for it. You can continue trying to sell it on your own, however you want to. But I'll do that for you if you get a property, okay? And if you don't have one now, if you were on this call and you remember me saying this, just say, send me a message that says 21 or put 21 in the chat box here, and then we'll have proof that you were on this call. But if you have properties now, or you get a property, implementing these techniques, I'll have my guy sell it for you, and you don't pay for it unless you select his buyer, which means you're going to get paid. Okay, so I can't make it a much better deal than that, right? You can't lose, in other words. You have no way to lose. So I'll do that for you, because I know we're really, really good at getting buyers for these properties, and we'll get it sold for you. So that allows you to be focused on the acquisition, which, like I said, that's what you really need to be focused on, is the acquisition, because that's where you really make the money, where you convert the asset into cash is the selling. But that's the easy part, and that's why I'm willing to do it for you for free if you write 21 in here, or just reach out. You don't have to write 21 in here. I'll trust that you were on the call. So I'll hook you up with my guy there if you have a house for sale now or later. Okay, just because you saw this. So now the third piece to this is, when you get good at acquiring the properties and obviously selling them, then thank you, Katrina. Well deserved. You've been sticking around here for a while. I appreciate that. When you get good at this, now you want to do it again, right? Just think about the kids, right? Like think about your kids when you took them on a roller coaster. They were really scared to get on that roller coaster at first, right? Really scared. You almost had to push them into it. And then when they do it, I want to do it again. 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 Well, this is kind of like that, right? Everybody's a little nervous, a little scared, but then once you do it and then you make that money on that first deal, you want to do it again and then again and then again. And it's addictive in a very big way, probably worse than drugs, right? Because, having somebody deposit you think when I got that $700,000 check a couple weeks ago, I'm going to do a case study on that, by the way. And you keep in mind, I showed you another one where I got $230,000 check earlier this year. That it's over $1 million in real estate profits. We're only at June right now. Now, that took a little bit of doing to get to that level. You might not be working at that level just yet, but even getting a fraction of that would be pretty good, right? For starters. So, and I'll help you do that. But the point is, you think when I get a check like that, I'm not saying to myself, I want to do it again. I want to do it again. I want another hit. I want another bump, to put it in that kind of vernacular. This business becomes very addictive. So because of the amount of money that you're making and the freedom that it actually buys you, what they call FU money, right? Where you can wear your hair long and stuff like that if you want to. Everybody thinks I look like an idiot with my hair long, but I like it. I had someone tell me the other day I look like I just spent 100 years at the X Games. That was classic, man. I thought that was great. I loved it. So the point being that you need when you want to when you're jonesing for more money, right? For more deals, you want to scale up, and you need a system of generating quality leads that allow you to do it repeatedly over and over and over again. And what I'd submit to you is that there is no better lead generator in real estate than the system that I've developed called Hyperdrive. And I did a couple presentations on that in here. Hyperdrive basically boils down to this. When you run your ads to attract sellers, to attract sellers or buyers, just think about the difference between running an ad that sends somebody to a website. Well, I don't want to reiterate the whole thing, but Hyperdrive will get you exponentially more leads than running ads the traditional way. And I outline that in detail in the program. Just look up the hyperdrive or the lead generation event in here, and you'll be good to go. So that rounds it out, right? When you master the strategy, which will take a little bit of time, when you master the approach, which will take a little bit of time, when you've mastered the objection handling, which is just like your multiplication table flashcards, right? It's just memory, knowing what to say to each objection that comes up. There's only like 20 or 30 things that somebody can say. You get the answer to that, and then it's just like 8 times 7 is 56. 9 times 3 is 27. There's a lot more than 20 or 30 combinations of your multiplication table, but you have the answer. Well, you can memorize 20 different answers. So you have that. Then we learn how to execute the agreements. Then we learn how to market so that we can scale up. And that's the business in a nutshell. Now, there's a lot of nuance to that, right? So the way my program unfolds is I give you all of that strategy, and we do it over a 5-week cycle. And it's a cycle because, like I said, your time never runs out with me. If I accept you in the program, you're with me for as long as I can fog a mirror, as long as I'm alive. I'm probably older than, a lot of you. So, I'll probably die first, but I'll help you for as long as you need it. There is no expiration. So you could go through as many 5-week cycles as you need to learn the strategy, the approach, the objection handling, the putting the agreements together, and the marketing. Oftentimes people have to go through things, go through a cycle or two before they really have it down pat. And the other thing that I do for my clients is while you're going through this cycle and you're learning is because we're so good at the lead generating, part of what I use your tuition for, which again is chump change, right? We're talking about a few $1,000s here, guys. For this kind of coaching, it really should be over 6 figures. There's people who, haven't had as much experience as me who charge 6 figures for mentoring that is frankly less than what I offer. They give you 4 months, 6 months, maybe a year. You don't even talk to them every day. So, you're getting quite a value here, but it gets to be almost ridiculously valuable when you think about what I'm about to tell you, which is I want you so focused on learning what I've just presented to you strategy-wise that I'm actually going to do the lead generating for you out of your tuition. You're not going to pay for it. I mean, you've already paid for it. Now, I'm not going to do that in a perpetuity. I'm not going to do that forever. But I'll do 4 months of lead generating for you while you're in the program. And we can start that at any time. We can start it right away when you're in the program, or you can go through a few cycles of this, and then I can kick your leads on for you, so you can begin calling sellers and making deals. You could do it anytime. That in and of itself is tremendously valuable. In fact, the people that I take into my program, my lead generating program alone is like a $30,000 product. People buy it hand over fist to just get the lead generating. I won't take, so you get that if you come into my program, because the people that I'm bringing into my program aren't always, there's a lot of already very successful real estate investors who just need the lead generating component. Well, there's not really a good reason for me to bring them in as a client and commit to helping them forever, because there's almost no way they're going to JV with me on something, because it's actually smarter to not JV with me because you make more money. You keep all the money instead of splitting it with me. So, but I will sell the lead generating program to established real estate investors. But that's going to be much more expensive than coming in the coaching program, because you'll get that as part of being in the coaching program. That's also why I don't take everyone. That's why we got to get on the phone and make sure we're a good fit for each other. And then the third piece to all of this is, what I've already suggested is that having GPS level guidance and navigation system to help you get from point A to point B is really important. Nobody uses road maps anymore to drive across country or to drive anywhere. You just plug in the GPS and the things like the navigation systems, turn left, turn right, there's the exit, you've arrived. That's the way you want your real estate pathway to unfold for you, with somebody in your ear, do this, do that. Because if all you have to do is really learn, memorize, and then go out and implement. And if you do something wrong, then we talk about it, and you don't lose any money because you're not losing any of your money, any of your own credit, but it's a learning experience, and you get better at it. And having that level of guidance gets you to the other side much more quickly. So, you put the whole thing together, you've got a robust strategy, you're going to have more leads than you can possibly process, and you have daily coaching that never expires. So I'm trying to put you in a position where you can't lose. And if you'll just allow me to help you, then you can take advantage of all the spoils that we've talked about over these last 21 weeks. So I hope you do that. Jump on a Zoom call, and we'll get it going for you, okay? Look, getting on the Zoom call, there's no obligation. At the very least, I can show you what this would entail and what it could look like for you financially, and then we can make a decision on what to do while we're on the call. But it doesn't hurt to schedule the call. If you don't know how to do that, just shoot me a message on Messenger, and I'll send you my calendar link, and you can just put something on the calendar. Okay, so I hope you'll do that. If not, feel free to ask any questions here in the comments, whether you're live or whether you're replay. If I missed anybody here in the comments, hey Laura, I will come back and answer these questions for you, and we'll try to get you on the right track and try to get you going. So anyway, I appreciate you spending almost a whole hour with me here this morning. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and if you need me, just holler. Appreciate y'all. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll catch up with you on the flip side. See ya.